The Chicago Bears just won the NFC North, made the playoffs, pushed a talented Rams team in the divisional round, and somehow people are still sleeping on what this franchise is building. Caleb Williams is heading into year 3. Let that sink in. The guy who looked like a completely different quarterback by the end of last season now has a full offseason under Ben Johnson, a head coach who already turned this offense into one of the more exciting units in football during his very first year. The offensive line that helped make it happen is not going anywhere either. Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson are locked in at guard. And when Drew Dahlman suddenly retired, Ryan Poles did not panic. He went out and grabbed Garrett Bradbury from New England, a center who already played next to Thuney and won a Super Bowl doing it. This offense has a foundation that most teams in the league would trade their entire draft to build, and they are only getting started. Now flip to the other side of the ball, because this is where things get really interesting. Dennis Allen is not just tweaking this defense. He is rebuilding it with one thing in mind: speed. Every single move this offseason, from the linebackers they signed to the secondary pieces they brought in, tells you exactly where this team is headed. Montez Sweat and Austin Booker are still anchoring the edge. But behind them, the names are changing, the philosophy is shifting, and if you are not paying attention to what is happening inside this building at Hollis Hall, you're going to be caught off guard when September hits. But here's the part nobody wants to talk about. There are real questions hanging over this offseason that could decide whether this team takes the next step or stalls out completely. A national reporter called this franchise broke on live television. There are trade targets on the table that could transform the roster overnight. There's a draft prospect at pick 25 who fits this defense like he was custom built for it. And there are players currently wearing a Bears jersey who might not be on this team much longer. So before you decide whether Chicago is a real contender or not, you need to hear what is actually going on behind the scenes, because the next move Ryan Poles makes could change everything. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Bears and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 300 likes on this video. The signing that nobody is giving enough credit to is Devin Bush. 3 years, $30 million, $21 million guaranteed. That is $10 million per year for a linebacker who was flat out one of the best in the NFL last season in Cleveland. He can cover tight ends, he can blitz off the edge, he plays sideline to sideline with a 4.4 speed that most linebackers in this league simply do not have. And here is what makes this even crazier. Tremaine Edmunds just signed with the Giants for 3 years, $36 million, and you could argue Bush outplayed him last season. The Bears got the better player for less money. That does not happen often in free agency, but Ryan Poles pulled it off. Then there is Kobe Bryant, and this is a name that should have every Bears fan excited. 3 years, $40 million for a Super Bowl champion safety who recorded 4 interceptions, 66 tackles, and 7 pass breakups last season with Seattle. He was a cornerback earlier in his career before Mike McDonald and that Seahawks staff converted him to safety, and that versatility is exactly what makes him so dangerous. With both Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker leaving in free agency, this was not just a nice addition. This was a necessary one. Bryant steps in as a day one starter and immediately gives this secondary a playmaking ability it desperately needed to replace. What ties all of this together is the identity shift. This is not the same slow, physical, grinded out defense from 2 years ago. Dennis Allen wants athletes. He wants guys who can fly around the field, create turnovers, and make quarterbacks uncomfortable before the pass rush even gets home. But adding speed at linebacker and safety only solves part of the problem, because there is one position group on this defense that still has a massive hole in it. The signing that might end up being the steal of the entire offseason barely made a headline. Jedrick Wills Jr., former 10th overall pick out of Alabama back in 2020, signed for 1 year and just $1.2 million. That is essentially nothing. This is a guy with legitimate first-round talent who lost 2 full years to knee injuries and a major hip procedure. But the word coming out of camp is that he is healthy. And now he walks into a building with Ben Johnson, offensive line coach Dan Rochar, Watson, and an entire staff that already turned guys like Jordan McFadden and Theo Benedette into reliable contributors last season. If they can unlock even 70% of what Wills used to be, the Bears just found their starting left tackle while Ozzie Trapilo recovers from his knee injury. And if it does not work out, you cut him and move on with zero dead money. That is the definition of a no-lose situation. Khalif Raymond is another move that quietly solved two problems at once. He replaces the punt return role that Devin Duvernay held and upgrades the depth receiver spot that Zacchaeus occupied, all in one affordable deal worth up to $5.1 million. The real kicker is that Raymond already knows the Ben Johnson offense from his time in Detroit, so there is almost no learning curve. He walks in, ready to contribute from day one. Cam Lewis, coming over from Buffalo after 6 years with the Bills, gives this team a Swiss Army knife in the secondary. He can play safety, nickel, or even slide outside in an emergency. He replaces C.J. Gardner-Johnson at roughly half the cost. None of these moves will win you a press conference, but stacked together, they tell you Ryan Poles understands how to build a roster without overpaying. What he has not been able to avoid, though, is one very loud conversation that refuses to go away. Adam Schefter went on ESPN Get Up and said something that sent the entire Bears fan base into a spiral. His exact words were that the Bears do not have any more money right now. They are broke. He said it while talking about the Max Crosby trade rumors, basically shutting down any possibility of Chicago making a blockbuster move. Now, the question that immediately followed was simple but important. Was Schefter talking about salary cap space, or was he talking about actual cash from ownership? Because those are two completely different problems, and only one of them is fixable with a phone call. From a cap standpoint, the Bears are tight but far from stuck. They have restructure options on up to 9 different players that could open close to $60 million in space. Montez Sweat alone could free up almost $10 million. Joe Thuney sits at $7.6 million. Jonah Jackson at $6.9. The flexibility is there if they want to use it, but Bill Zimmerman from Windy City Gridiron made a strong case that Schefter was not talking about the cap at all. He argued this was about the player roster budget, the actual cash that George McCaskey hands to Ryan Poles at the start of every offseason, and that the Bears may have already hit that ceiling. Then David Kaplan from ESPN 1000 jumped in and said after making calls that Schefter was only referring to the cap situation, and that ownership will spend whatever is needed if Poles identifies the right move. So which version is true? The Bears currently sit 19th in cash spending out of 32 teams. Not broke, but not exactly swinging for the fences either. And with a potential mega extension for Caleb Williams looming and the stadium situation still unresolved, the real answer might be somewhere nobody wants to admit. But finances aside, there's a gap on this roster that money alone cannot fix. Every Super Bowl champion in the last 4 years had one thing in common, and it was not a star quarterback or a flashy wide receiver. It was a dominant defensive tackle. The Rams had Aaron Donald in 22. The Chiefs had Chris Jones back-to-back. The Eagles rolled out Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis together. The Seahawks had Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams anchoring the middle of their line last season. That kind of interior pressure changes everything. It collapses pockets before edge rushers even get home. It kills timing routes. It turns 2nd and 6 into a nightmare for offensive coordinators. And right now, the Chicago Bears do not have that player. Look at the current depth chart, and it tells the story. Gervon Dexter is solid, but not a game wrecker. His name came up at the Combine as a potential trade candidate. And while the Bears probably keep him because of how thin they are, that tells you how the front office views his ceiling. Grady Jarrett is serviceable, but aging, and he is likely gone after this season. Beyond those two, you are looking at Shamar Turner and Dio Odeyingbo, coming back from injuries with no guarantee of when they will be fully ready. The free agency additions of Neville Gallimore and Kentavious Street added bodies, but neither one is the type of interior force that wins you a playoff game in January. Dennis Allen has made it very clear that he wants chaos up the middle of his defensive front. He wants a 3 technique who can penetrate, disrupt, and force quarterbacks into mistakes before they even finish their drop. That type of player is not sitting in free agency right now, but he might be sitting on a draft board, waiting for the Bears to call his name at pick 25. And there is one prospect who fits this description almost perfectly. Ryan Poles already told the world that he had conversations with the Raiders about Max Crosby. That alone tells you the Bears are not sitting still. They are making calls. They are exploring. And the trade market right now has some names on it that could genuinely transform what this roster looks like before training camp even starts. The most exciting one might be Devon Achane out of Miami. This guy had 1,350 rushing yards last season and nearly 150 catches over the last 2 years combined. He is a home run waiting to happen every single time he touches the football. The Dolphins have been unloading contracts, and if they would accept a second-round pick. On the defensive side, Kayvon Thibodeau from the Giants is entering the final year of his 5th-year option at roughly $14 million. He has never quite lived up to the hype of being a top 10 pick, but he is still a good player with upside. A 3rd-round pick with a late-round pick coming back feels like the right price for a 1-year rental who could add real depth to the edge rotation. Then there is Moro Ojomo from Philadelphia, a young defensive tackle who posted 49 pressures and 6 sacks last year. Those are elite interior numbers. With the Eagles likely needing to extend Jalen Carter at a massive price tag, Ojomo could become expendable for the right offer. Any one of these trades would meaningfully upgrade this roster. But trades are a two-way street, and before the Bears can bring new faces in, they might need to move some familiar ones out first. Sometimes, building a better team means letting go of good players who no longer fit the direction you're heading. And that is exactly the situation TJ Edwards finds himself in right now. He has been a reliable, productive linebacker in Chicago. Good against the run. Tough, physical. But this defense is not about playing downhill anymore. It is about flying around the field and covering every blade of grass. The Bears already signed Devin Bush and brought back DeMarco Jackson, 2 linebackers who can flat out run. Edwards is coming off a fractured fibula with 2 years left on his extension, and if a team like Dallas, who has been desperate for linebacker help all offseason, offers a 5th-round pick, that saves Chicago $6.2 million in cap space. That is not giving him away. That is smart roster management. Then there is Tyreek Stevenson, a former 2nd-round pick who has shown flashes but never found consistency. There were stretches last season where he looked like a legit starting corner. Then there were stretches where the coaching staff benched him in favor of other options even when Jalen Johnson and Nahshon Wright were struggling. If the Bears truly believe in him, he would have played more when it mattered most. Kansas City just lost Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson in the same offseason, and they need corners badly. A late-round pick for Stevenson saves $4.1 million and opens the door for younger guys like Terrell Smith and Za Frazier to compete for real playing time. These are not emotional decisions. These are calculated moves by a front office that has made it clear it values speed, versatility, and upside over loyalty to past draft capital. And if the Bears do clear this space, it only strengthens the case for what they should do with pick 25, a decision that could define this entire offseason. Every move this offseason has been pointing toward one moment, one pick, one position, and one name keeps showing up on every single mock draft board connected to the Chicago Bears. Peter Woods out of Clemson, 6'2", 310 pounds, a reported 4.86 40-yard dash at that weight, which is absolutely absurd for a defensive tackle. He is explosive off the snap, violent with his hands, and he plays the 3 technique position exactly the way Dennis Allen wants it played. Penetrate, disrupt, collapse the pocket from the inside before the quarterback even finishes his drop. Multiple analysts, including Brad Biggs and Bucky Brooks, have specifically linked him to Chicago. And Bucky Brooks described him as a talented interior defender with the quickness, agility, and active hands to expand the defensive Wizards playbook. That is not a depth piece. That is a cornerstone. Now, some fans will ask about Caleb Banks, the massive 6'6", 336-pound defensive tackle out of Florida, who dominated at the Senior Bowl earlier this year. And on paper, he looks like a monster. But here's the problem. Banks broke his foot at the combine and had to undergo surgery on his fourth metatarsal. That same foot gave him trouble during the 2025 college season at Florida, where he missed close to 2 months. A player that size, with recurring lower body injuries, is a gamble this front office should not take. Caden McDonald is another name floating around, but most projections have him off the board before 25. That leaves Woods sitting right there in the Bears' lap, and this might be the most complete fit between a prospect and a team in the entire first round. If Ryan Poles makes this pick, pairs him with the free agency additions, and executes even one of those trades we talked about, this is no longer just a playoff team. This is a roster built to compete for something much bigger.